This week, we discuss the story of a badass demon and a bare-ass baby demon lord.
And I reconsider family planning now that lightning is involved.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm Garrett.
And we watch anime. Garrett, sit around. Let me tell you the tale of a land far, far away. There lived a barbaric, ruthless, and defiant demon-like bastard who thought nothing of his fellow man. Now take that story and match it with a naked baby pissing all over his head, and you pretty much get the gist of the show we are going to be discussing today. That's right, we just take on the action, comedy, shounen, dusted childcare story known as Beelzebub. But before we begin, Garrett, what are new fans going to be expecting from this show?
An inordinate amount of neutrally rendered baby penis.
Yes, there's no wrinkles, there's barely any defined features to baby penises.
It's like if you asked like an 8-year-old to draw a penis, and they were like,
it looks like it looks like a tangerine but with like one lone leaf. That's all you really. That's what it looks like with the show, and you'll see it quite frequently. In fact, I remember when I was looking up the notes for the show, one of the things that made it really hard for an international audience to take on Beelzebub as a show was the very rampant amount of baby genitalia that's in this show. But and for those of you who are very lost out there, this week we are discussing the show Beelzebub, which came out in about 2009 to 2015 was the manga. This was my interaction with it because it was around the same time as Bleach and One Piece, and it was in the same magazine, so it was kind of bunched with like the golden era of anime. And the anime came out in 2014 to 2015, so not a long-lived one, about 60 episodes total. And the manga got completed in good order. I think it went its distance as far as it was going to go, but it was actually a pretty good show in my mind when I read it a long time ago. Before I get into any more information about it, what's some general ideas? What was the general gist? What did you think of this show?
I'll give you the general gist in a moment, but I need you to know that every time you're like, oh, it was in like the golden age of Shonen Jump, it was side by side with all these other shows, I always think to myself, like, yeah, as Dilbert is to Hagar the Horrible, or Kathy, or Garfield. I mean, if you've read one, you've read them all.
Yeah. And also, yeah, or at least it's not BC, which is like the worst of the Sunday morning comics. I always thought to myself, it would be like, it would be like, oh, the setup would be some punchline and end with Jesus loves you, and I'd be like, what is this? Why is this in a major Sunday newspaper?
As a kid, I always resented the single pane ones, like Dennis the Menace or Family
Circus.
Family Circus. I was like, one pane? This is stupid. Okay.
I paid $1.50 for this newspaper.
So, quick synopsis of Beelzebub. As the intro so eloquently describes in every episode, through a strange set of circumstances, and that's all you get. It was basically reintroduces the story of like, this is the story of a delinquent high school student for some reason ends up finding a baby, and that's really the gist of the story, right?
And the comedic tales that come with it, especially knowing that this baby is essentially the devil's kid, right? But instead of nurses hanging themselves like in The Omen, it's just like hilarity ensues. And
I mean, and we're back in high school.
Right, we're back in high school. But like, I would say high school is just a skeleton by which this story takes place. No schooling is happening at this school. So
okay, well, I mean, how could it? Because the show is set in the #1 worst high school in all of Japan, where every student looks like a gang member who's 40 years old.
Like, they're all going to do, like, the Scared Straight program. That's their...
But the only character who legitimately looks of high school age is his best friend.
Uruichi, yeah. It's... So, yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to, like, unpack with this show. I think there is this special niche that this show belongs to. And weirdly enough, I would consider this like an undercover hidden gem of Weekly Shonen Jump, because when I posted on Instagram that we were going to do this show, we got like an amazing like response to it. People loved that we were going to be doing Beelzebub. I know for a new fan, it's really hard to get into like Japanese humor because the humor in this show is super Japanese, like super duper Japanese. But for a weeb like me, you might be able to get a chuckle or a chortle out of it. It's kind of reminiscent of Haven't You Heard of Sakamoto? That style of like, you know, earnest kind of cantankery that comes with the show that I
By the way, I loved Haven't You Heard of Sakamoto?
Great show. And I think this show kind of plays its 2 or 3 notes over and over again. It's kind of like Green Day in that regard. It just keeps playing the same power chords over and over again, but people still kind of get the gist of it. And then also for the most part, it's a comedy. Even though it was like a weekly Shonen Jump, it only has like smatterings of shonen action flair, but really, in all honesty, it's a comedy. That's what it's supposed to be. So, I guess the first question for you, Garrett, is: did you find it funny? Did you find it interesting? What are some initial thoughts of the show?
There are a few moments that I chuckled, but for the most part, I was like, "What is this absurdity in front of me?" And you know, I watched
your emotions,
like,
Garrett.
I watched it in like 3 different settings. The first 2 episodes I watched on my phone while I was in bed. The next 2 episodes I watched while I was at work. The following 2 episodes I watched while I was sitting there in front of the TV, you know, having my dinner. So I was in like different settings. And there were times where like I wanted to find it endearing and funny, but most of the time I was just like, God, this is dumb. By the way, my wife, who referred to, she watched the last 2 episodes with me while I was having dinner tonight, and she goes, "My Holly take is that it was bad."
Instant Holly take. It was bad. And weirdly enough, when I was watching it again for the second time, I was thinking to myself that, like, if you were steeped in the shonen anime culture world where, like, really what you get out of comedy in like One Piece or Bleach is that each character has a thing, and they kind of like play that thing and how it plays with other things. Like Luffy is the dumb one, you know, Zoro is the angry, sleepy one, Sanji is the perverted one, and just seeing what happens when those 3 pieces bump into each other like pinballs. How does that work? And so, if you were steeped in that kind of comedy, then this show is that, because you got the Oga character, who is like the mean jerk of a guy who somehow is endearing, with the demon maid who's the tsundere, and then you got the really homoerotic demon that opens himself up, Alaindalon, and then you got Furuichi, which is like the straight man character, and seeing how they interact. I could see how it would work, but as I was watching it later, I thought to myself, like, this doesn't have as much of the fun as I thought it would when I was originally reading it, but I still had good fond memories of it.
Alaindalon was by far the best character.
Yes, exactly, because he was the one that, like, I can imagine a lot of the stuff for the show makes sense, right? He's a baby. He's walking around in the world. He shocks you when he cries. Oga is a jerk. He punches people in the face. But what is this weird, dude who comes straight out of Fire Island in the June, floating, doing the plank challenge in the river, and opens himself from the middle to reveal that baby? I can imagine you going like, what is this? What am I watching?
I think the moment that I laughed the hardest was, so I don't want to jump the gun, and we'll get there, but I'll lead you by saying, when he was trying to ingratiate himself to the kid's family, and he was like, I felt it when you were inside of me.
It's like, inside him, oh no! Oh.
Right, which we'll get there.
We'll get into that as well, yeah. So let's talk about the plot of the show. We kind of gave a general idea. Let's talk about Tatsumi Oga. What's his deal?
So Tatsumi Oga is first year, however old that makes him.
He's a 7th grader, so that would be what?
Okay, because he looks like he's an animated 20.
Yes. He's like a real 14, animated 20.
Right. And he goes back and forth between having normal teeth and having sharp, evil teeth.
Yes, having like sharp, evil teeth.
But, the show tries to say that he's a bully, and the reason why this child has ingratiated himself to him, and by the way, the child is the Devil Lord's son.
Yes.
It's because the Devil Lord's son is attracted to the most bastardy, badass, uncaring about other people character. But they really don't play Tatsumi that way beyond the first like 5 minutes.
Right. He seems to like. It seems like everybody wants to mess with him. He doesn't necessarily want to mess with people, but he's very quick to end it if he needs to.
Yes.
He's that kind of character. Like he's also really dense, so he's constantly walking into bad situations and then like gets himself out of it by punching it in the face. That's generally Tatsumi's thing. And Oga is his name, and so that is clearly a joke to the word ogre. So he's like kind of a demon guy. So they make that real, like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge to his name. But Beelzebub, who is the baby character, the aforementioned naked baby with just a pacifier, his real name is Beelzebub IV, Kaiser de Emperana. And he was sent to Earth to destroy it because his dad was, like, too lazy, which I thought was a really funny foil. Like... His dad is a really, like, the actual demon lord, like they show him like in their imagination that he looks like this like bull demon that's like but when you go to, he's like this skinny dude with long green hair, and he's just like, his plans are very mundane when he considers
and he's like, how long is it going to take to destroy the world? He's like, too long, because he's playing like PlayStation, isn't he?
Yeah, he was playing on a PSP, so that kind of also gives you an idea how old this anime is. And he was like, and then there's like, what's also on my schedule? Well, you have a 10,000 day long mahjong tournament that you have to do. And he's like, okay, I guess I'll just send my son down there. Which is a great foil, I think the foil of his dad being kind of a dummy is like my favorite part of the show. But
10,000 day long mahjong tournament.
Yes. And it was like the mahjong was also demon themed, so like, the instead of like lines, they're like spikes, and there's hammers and like voodoo dolls. And so we get the evil. It's just a slight tinge of evil when it comes to all the demon stuff with the show. But basically, when you would say this kid's the demon lord's son and he's a baby, he's not mean at all. He's just a baby, and so the idea
with an odd golden clown nose.
That's Garrett. That's it's a pacifier. He has a pacifier in his mouth.
So
did you think that was a nose that whole time?
Yes. My wife asked about that. She goes, is that a nose or a pacifier? I said, I think it's a weird nose.
You think he was like Buggy the Clown, but with a golden
nose? Yes. And his wrist just floated off. Like...
No, he didn't have the bar no me. He was not a detachable clown boy. That was just a pacifier. That was his baby.
That is a lamely, lazily animated pacifier.
And you don't really hear him say for the words "babu, babu." That's like his "da" and "babu" are his main line. So you got to give credit to the. I always want to give credit to the voice actresses that are forced to like give like character and emotion to things that only can say like one thing. Like the woman who does the Pikachu voice.
Yep.
Like you got to give her credit because she only has got one line. For what I would assume to be 25 years worth of work. She said one word, and she's been like, Pika, 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 Pika. Like, it's just has to figure out how to make that work, and so she's beating that horse all the time. But so is the case with Beelzebub, who is kind of he's still a sweet, endearing child with green hair, green Zorro hair, as we've shown on our Instagram, and he's got a thing, which is talk us through. Why Oga can't seem to get rid of this baby? Like, what's his deal?
So as I mentioned briefly before, is being the son of the Devil Lord. Beelzebub is Beelzebub.
I want to say it's Beelzebub, but with the Japanese, it's like Beelzebubabu. Like, I don't know. You can never tell with actual Japanese how they pronounce
Right, like they're trying to use the name of the devil, Beelzebub.
Yeah, it's like when you hear like if you hear the words for McDonald's in Japanese, it's Makudu Naruto. I'm like, that's not even close to McDonald's, but okay. It's like, so he could be how we say it, Beelzebub. It could be Beelzebabu. Like, it could be any number of things.
So Beelzebub.
We'll call him Beelzebubs.
Beelzebubs.
Good old Beelzebubs.
Being the son of the Devil Lord, he's attracted to this sort of bastard, this mean a-hole, which Oga supposedly is, because as we mentioned, he just defends himself very quickly.
Yeah, he's a First Amendment guy. You know, what's that called? A stand your ground law kind of guy. You know?
Yeah, castle doctrine. No, so he's on him.
Yeah.
And like he's climbing all over him. He can't get rid of him. And the more Oga does bad things, the more attached he gets.
Right.
And sort of the crux of the show is Oga believes that if he can find someone who's worse than him, he can pawn this baby off on them because the baby will want to be with him. Because at the moment, we find out that he can't be more than 15 meters away from the baby. Because Beelzebub has this really endearing quality where he generates the electricity of a power plant and creates a mini explosion whenever he's upset.
Yes.
Whenever he's hungry and he's missed dinner time.
Yes.
Whenever he's too far from Oga. And essentially, it's like every bad Looney Tunes cartoon where the explosion should kill you, but instead you just have singed eyebrows.
Yeah. You breathe like a little bit of smoke, and you're like completely charred, but like everything gets
and the wall behind you's missing, but it's cool. You survive.
Cool. He's Oga. He's a badass like that. So yeah, you're right. The stakes of the show is that Oga has to kind of hold himself back, because if he doesn't, then the devil power in him gets too much and he'll become like a demon himself.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same token, it's like he has to perform dad duties, otherwise this kid will destroy him.
Right.
It's like it's this badass who has like these untenable situation, these actual real stakes, in a world in which everybody who he meets wants to punch him in the face.
And speaking of dad duties, that brings us to another character in the show, Hilda.
Hilda, yes.
Is dressed for some reason like a French maid. And she was sent to the world by the Devil Lord in order to watch over his son. And instead of, I think in the very beginning, if I'm not mistaken, she actually just tries to take the kid away to take care of the kid.
Yeah.
But Beelzebub's not having it.
Right.
He's like, I'm going to be with Oga. So Hilda's only option in her view is to help Oga raise this child, including like, this is what I think you mean when you talk about like this earnest Japanese humor. Yeah. There's a moment where he's leaving and she starts talking about the formula that he's supposed to feed him.
Yes.
And she's like, it has to be the exact temperature of the armpit of a wackadoodle in the underworld. Or like just
the armpit of a wackadoodle.
It's so obscure that you laugh because you're like, that's absurd.
Yes, it's absurd, and she says it with a complete straight face. And it's also when she's like introducing herself to Oga's parents and saying like, I need to live with you so I can be around this baby. You know, the woman's like, where are you from? He's like, she says, I'm from Makai, which means demon world. But they hear Macau, which is like another part of Hong Kong, China region, which is like the Las Vegas of Hong Kong, essentially.
Right.
And so, and like that earnest conversation, she's like, after all you've done, which what she really means is like, I'm going to murder this guy so I can get my baby out of here. That kind of stuff. And it just sounds.
And they all think that she has had this baby because Oga impregnated her.
Right. Correct. And my favorite is another bit that like, so everybody has a thing, is that Oga's dad does the like sliding I'm sorry pose. Like he'll like run
sliding grovel.
Yeah, the sliding grovel. He'll like run full speed. He'll like jump back, like he's like doing the long jump, and then like slide into the like they're like onegaishimasu pose, and he like slides into where he's like, I'm gonna make sure that he takes care of this baby. So it's as I said, it tries to do like the earnest style of humor, which I think it does just fine, but. Hilarity ensues. Let's talk about some of the first things that happened. Let's walk through like the first couple episodes. We met Hilda. We met Alaindalon, who is a transference demon. Well, actually, before we go into the episode, let's talk about Alaindalon. He's another important character.
Alaindalon is arguably the best character in the entire show. As you described, he's the transference demon. So he has the ability to transfer people in between worlds, but also in between locations within the same world.
Right, exactly.
And we're introduced to him very early because much like in the Bible where who was in a basket going down the river?
Was it Moses? I think Moses was in the basket.
Yeah, Moses, because Moses was Pharaoh's adopted son or whatever.
Yeah, or something like that, yeah.
But Alaindalon is if you can imagine what a curly Q mustached man in a 1920s single-piece bathing suit would look like, he's floating down the river with Beelzebub on his chest, and that's how
In his chest. He's inside. He's
in his chest.
He's essentially a human treasure chest when you think about how he operates in the world.
So if you say to Alaindalon, hey, I want to be in Vegas, and he says, sure, his chest cavity cracks open, and much like you're on like the Star Wars planet and like Han Solo tucks Luke into the beast's belly so that he doesn't freeze. Is that Darth? I don't know. Anyway, you have to jump into his chest.
Are you talking about the creatures or the planet?
It's the planet Hoth, I think.
Planet Hoth, it was a tauntaun that he got into.
Tauntaun, yes.
Yes.
So you have to leap into Alaindalon's chest, and he'll bring you wherever he needs to go. And sometimes...
But it doesn't seem like... And maybe I'm not getting the magic right. I don't think Alaindalon then transports. He just kind of carries you there. I don't know if that's how his powers work, because it may seem like he teleports, or it may also seem like you just in him until he gets you. He's basically a human bus that you can. He's a Greyhound you can jump into and take to your next destination. But yeah, another funny thing that happens like way later, because I got up to like episode 6 when I rewatched it, because I've finished this show. I've already watched it all the way through. Is that he apparently Hilda and Furuichi, who we'll talk about as well, get captured by another member of like the big baddie gang that you meet over
there. Yeah.
And they thought that Oga was coming, and they're like, oh, he'll be here at any point. And then instead Alaindalon shows up.
Mm-hmm.
And then Alaindalon, they're like, oh no, Alaindalon, that's not who we wanted. We wanted Oga. What an idiot. And he goes, who are you calling an idiot? And all of a sudden you see Alaindalon doing Lamaze, like he's about to push a baby. He's like, and he opens up, like, split down the middle, opens it up in the middle to show that Oga's in there. Like, it's stuff like that Alaindalon does really well that I think is fun.
Right.
Furuichi? Yeah, Furuichi's a good character to talk about as well. Yeah, what's his deal?
I'm glad you think he's a good character. He's just sort of the meek tag-along.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he is, as I said, he's the only one that you would believe is actually in middle school, both by behavior and looks.
Yeah, but also his thing is that things keep happening to he has like the worst luck when it comes to things. Not only does everybody think that Alaindalon is his, bear lover, Eventually you get a character that's also a demon who's a doctor, but she also looks like she's like 12. Mm-hmm. And everybody thinks that Furuichi has something for her. So they call him a lolly perv who also has sex with men. Like that, he just like things keep sticking to him in the worst possible way that he's a funny character in that regard, and he hangs out with Oga, who's constantly like pinching him, kicking him, and doing all that stuff. So life is not easy for Furuichi in that regard. So, but yeah, he's kind of the straight man character who's like smart. He knows what he's doing. He's not like dumb like Oga's pretty dense. Yeah. But yeah, let's once again, let's walk through the show.
And might we add, the entire time this is going on through the first 4 episodes, because we spoke about it earlier, Beelzebub is naked.
Naked the whole time.
And that's why you're seeing so much tangerine penis.
A lot of tangerine penis. And not only is like he naked the whole time, but also he seems to like relieve himself on Oga quite a deal. Like,
but Hilda makes it a point to say it's not unclean.
It comes out like Poland spring water.
Yeah. Well,
but his dookie doesn't. His dookie clearly smells. The crux
of the 4th episode is that he pees so much that the island of Japan will drown.
And so he puts on demon diapers. We got to get to that one. Like, this is the ridiculousness that you'll get through this show. But another thing that happens is he takes a huge dump on Oga's head. That was another thing that happened. And Oga's like, "How dare you take a dump on my head?"
So all the while this is happening.
Yeah.
So we've got Oga.
Mm-hmm.
He's taking care of Beelzebub. Hilda is trying to guide them, but she really doesn't like Oga, but she begrudgingly starts to see qualities in him. But then like
she's a good candidate for tsundere. Like, I'm better than you. I'm above you. Everything I say to you is insulting to you. I'm always crossing my arms and at you. She's a tsundere. She's clearly that character. Yeah.
But through all of this, they also do. And maybe this is just a product of being Shonen Jump. they have to create bosses.
Yes.
And so, as we mentioned before, Oga thinks the only way he can get rid of this baby and his responsibility is to find someone worse than him.
Right.
So every episode is a constant escalation of someone who's looking to beat up Oga. And the first path they go down is by far the most boring they could go down, is that Oga's a first year. So his first battle is with fellow first years. And then his second battle is with second years.
Right.
And then, it's starting to get bigger and badder. He fights a third year. And so it's, it's, I don't know, that sort of got to me. I was like, all right.
Well, the first years are funny because they all look like, like Samurai Showdown characters. And I have to say my favorite character in the show, your favorite is Alaindalon. My favorite character in this whole show is Shimokawa, also known as Goodnight Shimokawa, because his thing
is he the one with the Coolio dreads?
He's the one with the big ponytail in the back. He's black and he's always going like, good night.
Oh, in the purple suit.
Yeah, in the purple suit. Like, he doesn't do anything important. He just like walks around going like, good night. Like, that's just I don't know. I have still a place in my life for like, did I do that humor? Like he said the thing. So, I like it. So yeah, and those are pretty much throwaways. It also shows that as he's like beating people up, he's syncing up with him, so he's starting to get kind of devil powers. But then we start to introduce you said the boss phases, is what's known as the Toho Shinki.
Okay.
Which is the bad, or what they say in the translation is TKKH, but that's just because that's what people's names are. And we meet the yogurt-loving, nose-pierced, lovable kick boy Kanzaki. What happened there?
So Kanzaki is like, he's a third year, and he's the first one that like Oga seriously thinks is he can bring Beelzebub to.
Right.
And so I know they're in the worst school in all of Japan, but he's got this like very gangland, in a warehouse atmosphere where he's got like different baddies.
And he's got a banner behind him. He's kind of he's kind of like Shonuff in that way. And that's like he takes like a normal place and just like zhuzhes it a little bit to make it his own lair. Who's the baddest? Shonuff. Yeah.
Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon. Phenomenal.
Oh man, great movie.
So my favorite thing about Kanzaki, so his initial reaction when Oga comes to see him is he thinks Oga's looking for a fight.
Right.
Oga's not looking for a fight. And so Oga's like, there was a funny exchange where he's like, how do I do this? Do I just go hand him the baby? And he'll be like, yes, thank you so much for handing me.
Yes.
So he's like, oh, you know what? I'll be one of your followers.
Right.
And Kanzaki is like, you can't be a follower of mine unless you can at least beat up this henchman, because this henchman's the low of the low.
Right.
And, of course, Oga in one punch takes out the henchman.
Yeah.
But when the henchman gets back up, he's trying to redeem himself, and Kanzaki says, you're useless to me, throw yourself out the window. He won't throw himself out the window. So he uses his special move. He has these little, like, high C box drinks that are yogurt.
Drinkable yogurt, which, by the way, was the foil for the show, because he left Beelzebub's special powdered milk somewhere.
Yeah.
So apparently yogurt was good enough for him in that regard, and he bought up all the milk so that Beelzebub wouldn't shock him to death. And that was the crux by which Kanzaki's like, ooh, I'll get that, Oga. How dare you drink my yogurt chi?
So if I'm fighting you and I'm Kanzaki, my logic goes as such.
Step one.
I'm going to
cut a hole in the box. No, throw up the box.
Step 1, acquire the yogurt box.
Step 2,
toss yogurt box into the air. Step 3, you become disoriented and transfixed watching the yogurt box fall from the sky. Step 4, my axe kick, which was previously obscured by the yogurt box, comes down and smashes you in your face.
So therefore, not only do you get beaten up, but your face is covered in yogurt.
So stupid.
Pwned! You got pwned.
And the thing is like, this is a special. No one ever thinks to stop looking at the yogurt.
And it's not like, it's not like he's throwing like a gold Rolex. It's like a pre-opened yogurt box. It's
Or imagine throwing money in the air and
right,
like, oh,
ooh, I want the money. No, this is like an ABC chewed gum version of yogurt drink, and I throw that in and that gets kicked.
oh, I got knocked out with Gogurt.
But that's another foil of the show. The foil of the show is that while Oga is a bastard as proclaimed by this show, he's not going to let just any bastard get Beelzebub. Not someone who has bad, loose morals. You know? They always don't meet his standards, even though really he wants to get rid of this baby. He still has some weird standards by which he wants to keep the baby, and it kind of keeps going in that regard.
Right.
So, yeah, so he beats Kanzaki. And another thing that's really funny about the show is that anytime he beats someone up, he doesn't, like, beat them up and they're on the ground writhing, like, you beat me up. No, they always have their, like, head implanted into some wall, floor, or ceiling. And, like, even so that, like, they're, like, in the ceiling, but hanging, telling him he's going to die someday. They're like hanging, like, we're going to get it next time. With their, like, feet dangling from the ceiling.
Let's be real. How many people's skulls are going to be crushed by concrete?
Yeah, it's essentially and he gets like kind of like a name. He gets a nickname for himself. They call him the BOB Brawler, which is the Baby on Back Brawler, not the Brooklyn Brawler, the hitherto for perpetual jobber of the WWE, but the infamous Baby on Back Brawler.
Yep.
And you get like a kind of the idea of the demented needs of raising a demon baby as a high schooler. It's kind of like Teen Mom, but with and stuff like that. So yeah, and so another foil, as we said, is that it's not just taking care of a baby; it's taking care of a demon baby, and a lot of the stuff that comes with taking care of a demon baby is ridiculous. If you mess up in any way, shape, or form, he's going to shock you. If you get too far, he's going to shock you. If you don't feed him or don't entertain him enough, he's going to shock you. But another thing is that a lot of the items that he gets is absolutely, utterly ridiculous, and Oga has to deal with it. Like, there is one where, we don't talk about that one, but like a doctor's kit that you get to play doctor and like forces you to wear doctor gear, or there's like a play set that once you go into it, you get trapped in it unless the baby does like those like shape toys and stuff like that. But
yeah,
the one that was most ridiculous and one that centered the entire episode was, as you mentioned, the pea that will flood the world. And in order for them to like get around the eventuality of the eventual destruction of Japan, he puts on like this weird inner tube like chastity belt on himself, like a little spigot. It's like, oh, it's only going to hold his pee for 3 hours, but after that, and then he has to go to get diapers, which is apparently super absorbent and allows him to store the baby. So it's a lot of like the shenanigans of taking care of a demon baby. I would be remiss if I didn't take another opportunity before we move on of talking about the theme song. Did you get a chance to listen to both theme songs for this show?
I did, but they didn't leave an impression on me. But my wife listened to it one time, and she goes, "The subtitles say da 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 da."
Yes, yeah. Because the point of the show is that the kid's constantly saying like "dabu." He doesn't have any voice, but he does say "da da da." He's kind of like the Mr. Peepers character in SNL. He's like "ba ba ba." He's like that kind of character. And so the punk rocker who made this song for him was like, I'm going to write this song, but every word, every ending of the sentence is going to be da, which is fun because, like, da also is des. It's like, it's the word is, basically, but it's like an informal way of saying is, like, this person is this, but it's just going, like, it's like going, I walked down the street, da, went to the mall, da, I saw my friend, da, 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 like, that was the style that the song went with, and I remember being like, oh, God, that is irritating, and even for me, oh boy. I was like da 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 da, a punk rock da doing this da like that. So yeah, it was pretty ridiculous. But as you said, not too memorable. Let's talk about the second Toho Shinki we meet before we move on.
Okay.
other parts to it. We then meet the second of the bosses, the second phase of the Toho Shinki, which was the pompadoured rich man known as Himekawa. Talk us through his jam. What's
Himekawa, I know you refer to him as a rich man, but again, let friends, family, loved ones out there, don't let it be lost in you that this is still just another high schooler.
Yeah, he is a high schooler.
And so essentially, he instigates these fights with these baddies, and then when they come to him, he's like, how much for you to work for me?
Yeah.
So he tries to buy them all out.
Right. And then he he'll get like a whole gang to turn on the one boss. He also his big thing is he cheats. He's while the yogurt trick is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that does like the WCW Heat, bad guy heel version, like, ooh, I cover my chest with a steel plate so that when Goldberg spears me, I'm not gonna get hurt. Yeah. Or I have a taser. Like that's his deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so
was he the one that had the taser that shot acid?
It was a squirt gun that shot acid. So that was a weird thing to me, because apparently he captures, and this goes back to the original part where he captures Furuichi and he captures Hilda, drugs them both, so they're not really.
Which, by the way, how is Hilda getting captured? She has the power of the effing underworld.
She has a giant flying bird monster at her beck and call. But yeah, no, apparently she was like, oh, I'm drugged, so I can't do anything. I'm like, good, explain away. And so apparently Himekawa has this squirt gun with this like weird like Mario Brothers 1 level of acid lava that like melts your clothes but not your body.
Won't hurt your skin.
Won't burn your skin. And so he's just like, it was kind of weird, kind of weirdly sexual too. He's like, he said, he also screamed service, which I wonder what that's all about. He's like, service! Boom, 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 boom.
Well, he acid squirts her costume into a more revealing costume.
Just the fringes, like, not where the areolas are, not where the butt crack is, but just like the fringes. He's like, I'm gonna take my time with this service. Like, but he goes and once again, Alaindalon gives birth to Oga, lets him out. Mm-hmm. They try to, and Oga,
right, because he's kidnapped these two to trap Oga, to lure him.
And Oga also was like, another foil is that Oga has a mark of the Demon Lord on his hand, and the more bad, evil, sinister things he does, it takes over more of his arm. So he's actually not trying to hurt people now, but he can't help himself because they kidnapped Furuichi. They captured Hilda. So he gets there, and the guy's like, "Oh, I got this great chest plate. Try hitting me here." Boom, and he still gets knocked out, and like. He tries to tase him, and he's like, Beelzebub's electric shocks are worse, and like knocks him out. And I love it because instead of like implanting him by the head like everybody else, he implants him via the ass in the wall. Like Himekawa was like in the wall with his butt, and they're just like hanging out like. So yeah, it's that's the jam, and what this kind of leads into is that. The show is gearing Oga towards syncing up with Beelzebub and taking on more supernatural fights. As you're starting to see, they're starting very low scale when it comes to the fights, like the shonen flair. You're going to get to more, fights, more shonen stuff. The comedy's going to kind of make its way for the shonen stuff, and I kind of like that. I think that's what I think most weebs like about this show is that while it's comedy, it still does the weekly Shonen Jump stuff that you really like watching if you like the One Piece and stuff.
Right.
One thing is that he is always, his moves are also really funny because he copies Street Fighter names and stuff like that, or he'll be doing something and then put the word punch after it. He's like, just woke up from a snap punch, or
no, that was the sleep deprived punch.
Sleep deprived punch, or something like that. He also uses words like yoga chop. He says shorty you can, rocket punch, flash kick, psycho crusher, all Street Fighter moves. So like. It's also kind of like Family Guy and the pop culture references of it.
Got it.
Eventually, you get to the Zabel spell, which is him getting more demon power to his arms. You're kind of seeing it. But the ultimate power that he gets is a move called Super Milk Time, where Oga drinks the super milk that Beelzebub drinks to remove the limiter between Beel and himself, causing them to become synchronized. And he becomes kind of like a pseudo baby himself, and he's like daboo daboo and like beating people up and like going crazy and stuff like that. So So it does lead itself to some really fun
Do
battles.
we ever find out that the milk does in fact come from Hilda's deflated breasts?
Well, they do bring that up a bunch. Well, they do bring up that like they're wondering if Hilda is the one that they milk to get the milk for Beale. I mean, she's a maid, not a wet nurse, so I don't assume so. Then Alaindalon goes, "Oh, let me help," and he starts squeezing his own like man pecs. He's like, "Ooh, I'll get it out." Ooh, and then like Furuichi's like, "That's not possible." He goes, "Well, maybe I'll try on you," and he starts milking Furuichi.
and they don't do full fan service, but they do little things like they cut to a new scene with Hilda, and it's her hand squeezing some flesh, and she's going, "Ooh." Ooh, and then they like zoom out and she's rubbing
her own shoulders, like, oh man, this really cranks my shoulders, stuff like that. Ugh. So this show, it has a lot. The idea is it's the mix of comedy, it's the mix of shonen. It kind of goes between the two. It never really goes towards like a King of the Pirate style goal. Like there's no goal for this show. Like there's no like ending resolution. Like this show can end at any time.
Well, the goal is to get rid of the baby. The goal,
yeah.
But that's not going to happen because he's going to develop a connection with it. It's more likely that Beelzebub decides he doesn't want to be the Devil Lord's son and he goes to the light.
Yeah, maybe. Or he could just turn into the actual Demon Lord like his father and just be really lazy and never actually get to it. So who knows?
Right.
As we're kind of finding out, you don't seem to be willing to watch this further. So I know I might not be spoiling it for people that you didn't quite like this one that much. So, but tell me what the show would have to do to make you keep watching it, Garrett.
A lot more ecchi with Hilda.
It would have to be more.
No, you know what it is it's so funny. I kept the whole time I didn't like it. I kept thinking, is it me? Mm-hmm. Am I in a bad mood? I liken it to like, I'm in like the wine industry and I've had moments where I've tasted a wine. I remember specifically when I started at my old job before I had my current company, and I was on my way out the door, and I was running out the door to catch a train, and they were like, "Try this wine," and I tried it, and I was like, "Okay," and I ran out the door, and I stopped myself, and I said, "No, that was supposed to be better than that. Mm-hmm. Let me go back in. Let me chill out. Am I in the wrong headspace?" And currently, like, my business is crazy. I just bought a house, all this stuff, and I'm thinking, did I not give this show the full college try? And I knew what was going to happen when I knew how wonderfully low my score was going to be for the show. But then I talk it over with you and I start laughing about the things in the show and my score starts like creeping up. I would like to see they lean really heavily in the first 4 or 5 episodes on that, oh man, Beelzebub shocked him again and did an explosion. Yeah. I need less of that.
Right. I feel like this is one of the shows that the anime doesn't do as much service as to the manga as the manga would want, because when I read the manga, I remember being just like having fun with it, and it didn't have as much of the, because with an anime you have to remember, like, there's parts where you're trying not to outpace the manga, right? You're trying really hard to stretch things out, and it's kind of like when you watch One Piece and they just do the same, like, look at Luffy, look at Sanji, look at Zoro, and like do that several times over to really stretch the show out. Mm-hmm. They use the Beelzebub shock as the way of getting, like, oh, he bothered him, he got shocked, and that like wastes 10 seconds of time, right? It's a good filler of time for an anime. When you watch the manga, when you read the manga, which I would encourage people to do if they like this property, I agree. It's like, it takes a lot of the dumb cues and it stretches it out more than it should, and it's not as fun. When the manga does this stuff a lot quicker, and it's a lot more fun that way. I'm with you like that, because there's another show out there that I like called Hitman Reborn that I'm like, I want to have you watch because I really think it's a great show. Yeah. But the first 20 episodes do not do it justice. And let me talk about another show while we're trying to review this show. This show, Hitman Reborn, is about the mafia. So I think an anime interpretation of what the mafia is. So you got to imagine what that would be. But the way they set up like the magical powers of this mafia world is that you get shot with a bullet called a dying will bullet, and it makes you like, it takes you into like, you get motivated to your dying will, right? You have the power of what you would be like if you were about to die. If your adrenaline is running full speed, you're like, it's fight or flight, and you like flames come out of you, but it also explodes your clothes. that gag gets done over and over and over and over again for the first 20 episodes. And then once you get past that and you learn about the dying wolf flame and like how it works for everything else, it's an amazing show. But I remember watching those first 20 episodes going like, I don't want to see this kid's clothes going away. I don't want to see him running going like, I'm in my dying will. Ah! It doesn't do any service to what would normally be a good show. And I agree about, I 110% agree with you, because I remember being like really liking the manga. The manga is actually a lot more fun than the anime made it seem. And so I was disappointed in that regard when it came to the anime. So that leads us to what we'd like to call is our Weeb and Noob score. It's how we end these shows all the time. It's basically not a matter of whether it's good or bad, although Garrett is going to probably say whether it's good or bad. It's a measure of how soon can you watch it, right? Because even if a show we would think is bad, you might still like it. We're just two people with two different opinions, just, but it's just like, you can put it away if it's low. If it's high, it's like, get in front of your TV and watch it now. So I'm just going to get out of the way. I'm going to pull the Band-Aid off, Garrett. What is your noob score for the show Beelzebub?
6.
Wow, I was expecting a lot lower. I really was.
It was 4 when we started this conversation.
Talk me through your process.
My screen hat came off, and we joked about it and laughed about it, and I realized that there were some funny parts if you embrace the absurdity. It's like, if you watch like one of those terrible like epic movies or scary movies, and you're expecting it to be any more than what it is, right?
It's basically what it is, yes.
And so I'll give it I can't go back on what I said. I'll give it a 6 because it's got some chuckles. I don't think it holds any intrinsic value. I don't think you need to run and watch it. It's not a part of like the great canon of anime.
Right.
And so that's why 4 points right off the top. Yes, it was a 4 when we started talking about it, but the more we chatted and I softened like butter on a summer countertop, and now I'm at 6.
Well, that's good. That's good. I would also give it a 6, so I'm not too far off. And I would say specifically 6 for the anime. If you want to enjoy Beelzebub, and you really could enjoy this, if like you want a fun, if you like the humor that anime has to offer, if you like the humor that Japan has to offer, definitely give this one a shot in the manga form. Like buy the manga, buy it. Don't do anything that anybody would do that would be a pirate. Those dirty pirates, right? But it has a lot of like parts where you're just gonna like chuckle to yourself. Beelzebub's cute, and if you like the kawaii-ness of cuteness that Japan loves, they love they love cute babies, they love cute, Hello Kitties, and they have this thing called kudetama, which is this like egg that's really lazy. They think that's cute. Like if you like the cuteness of Japanese things, Beelzebub's a really good mascot for that. Also, Alaindalon's a really funny like foil to the whole like muscle man that's like weirdly homoerotic, but also kind of funny. Like at the same time, he really cares some of the show. The relationship between Hilda and Olga and Beelzebub. It grows a long time. So
Alaindalon reminded me a lot of the animated character, the character that they used for Otto van Bismarck in Sid Meier's Civilization.
Yes,
on Xbox 360.
On the like that kind of character. Yeah.
Wooey wooey.
I also think that go into it knowing that it's going to take its time getting to where the sweet spot's going to be, right? That perfect manner of like not too ramped up where like the person's too powerful. Now you're getting into really crazy territory, but not too slow that it's hard to like keep your attention. It's going to take a while to get to that point, and as Garrett said, it's going to push that bit of Olga getting shocked over and over again. Kind of its deal. So I mean, I like the show. It seems like there's a reason why as many people on Instagram liked it. They love the show. So there's obviously something to the Weeb community but this is one I would say is a good split. Like for a new fan, if you were to just stumble on this on the street, you're gonna be like, what the heck did I just watch? Right? But for a Weeb like myself, you get the kind of the culture, you get, you've seen a bunch of things with Japanese humor in it. You've seen like Gintama, you've seen, Haven't You Heard of Sakamoto? You've seen all these shows that show what Japanese humor is all about, and it does all that. And on top of that, you might get some shonen stuff out of it. So you might appreciate it a lot more. So don't let what either Garrett or I say detract you from giving it a go, honestly.
Right.
And we're going to probably see bigger turd burgers over time because I'm going to be running out of shows to send to Garrett at some point. So I'm just going to be shoveling turds into the coal mine just to get Garrett going. So, and while it's good that we can get Garrett to experience all that has to come with Beelzebub, it's also important to hear your thoughts. Was Beelzebub the type of show that you really appreciated from the golden era of Shonen Jump? Did you like it for its comedy? Did you like it for its humor? Was it a little bit too much for you? Did the idea of a little nectarine penis turn you off from the show as well? Let us know in the comments below because we really want to hear your thoughts on the conversation, especially when it comes to a show like Beelzebub that has gotten such love from our Instagram. Speaking of Instagram, we really encourage you to follow us on Instagram at WANWA Podcast. That's WANWA Podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter at @weeb_new. You can also follow us on anchor.fm/WANWA Podcast as our main server, but you can find us anywhere your podcast is found. Please, please, please give us a 5-star rating, five-time rating, just to get you. It allows people to watch our show, and we really want people to know more about us and join our Weeb and New community. But before we close this chapter on Beelzebub, Garrett, what are some final thoughts you have on this show?
It's never good to have a baby pee or poop on your head.
Yes. So we're going to be shaking up our powdered milk, hitting each other with tasers, doing the yogurt trick, kick trick. All in all, to wish you all a fantastic. See you next week.
Take care, y'all.
Like Beelzebub, don't get caught with your pants down and hit that subscribe button.
Do you want to keep us happy? Do you not want us to explode in a giant ball of electric energy? Put your comments below and let us know what we should watch next.